Hi, I'm Rob Cosman. Welcome to my shop. It is a fact. Wood moves. Dealing with wood movement is something you have to do in order to become a good woodworker or a successful woodworker. I'm going to share with you some of the stuff that I've learned. Stay with me. I'm Rob Cosman, and welcome to my shop. We make it our job to help you take your woodworking to the next level. If you're new to our channel, be sure to subscribe, turn on that notification bell, and don't forget to turn on the notification on your mobile device so you'll know every time we release a new video. Good? All right, back to the bench. Now, it's really frustrating. You mill up all your lumber, you come back the next day, and now it rocks corner to corner and it wasn't flat like it was the night before. Or look at an example like this. You have to realize that wood moves across its width. Doesn't get any longer, but it's always going to be moving across its width, either shrinking or expanding. If I had put a solid hardwood frame all the way around this piece and didn't allow for it, look at the trouble I would have been in. That is flush sometimes in parts of the year, and it's sunken in like that in other parts. So these are issues that you have to deal with. And there are things that you can do that will lessen the chance of that happening. It's not a perfect science by any stretch. But there are certainly a lot of things that you can do that will work in your favor. So I'm going to go through them one at a time, and hopefully this will help make you a better woodworker. First thing is maybe the most obvious, and that is to choose your wood carefully. The problem is, especially when you're starting out and you don't have a whole lot of money to spend on wood, you need 10 board feet and you buy 11 board feet. It doesn't give you a lot of options, so you have to take whatever you got. However, if you look at something like this, a piece of sapele or mahogany look-alike, but you can see all the waves and twists and turns. I can guarantee that if I went over to the table saw after jointing an edge and ripped this, that it would bind on the blade at some point. There's just a lot of internal stress. So that's going to be a piece of wood that unless you want it for that look, I would avoid it in terms of trying to keep something nice and flat. Here's an example of wood that's been quarter sawn, or the grain is perpendicular to the width of the piece. So you see how it runs like this as opposed to something like this. This is flat sawn. This has a tendency as it dries to want to lay flat. Those lines always want to straighten out. So that's always going to have a tendency to cup. Whereas just because of the way these are cut, they're going to be a lot more stable. Again, no guarantee, but a far better chance. I'd bet my money on this one before I would bet my money on that one. So choose carefully. If you're in a situation where the piece is not going to be supported, for instance, you're going to put a top on and it's one solid piece of wood, then you got to make sure that you've got a good stable piece. If it's a piece like this where it's dovetailed on two corners, well, those dovetails are going to help hold that piece secure, so you really don't need to worry about it as much. This top was built with a piece of bird's eye maple on both ends and a tongue and groove to help keep that nice and flat. Again, you have to allow for the movement. There's no glue from here to here, but it's built in such a way that this is kept tight, and that just allows it to expand and contract seasonally. So choosing your wood is first and foremost. You got to be careful. Look for the straight grain stuff if you want nice stability. Okay, next is to mill your material up accurately and properly. So here's a piece of 4/4 poplar, often used for drawer sides. 4/4 means it's approximately 1 inch when you buy it, and that's expected to yield 3/4. But if I don't want a 3/4 inch drawer side, I want, say, a 7/16. I've gone in and I've flattened one side on the jointer. If I put this through the planer and then take all of this material off up here to be finished off with this piece, well, there's a good chance it's not going to be very stable because there is stress in wood and you need to remove it evenly, which means instead of taking this piece down here, I should have gone in and removed some here, and then some here, and then some more here, and then finished up with this section right in the middle. That's my best bet for stability. Again, no guarantee, but I would be willing to bet that this piece is going to be a lot more stable than if I'd taken that piece. So take off equal amounts. Now, that seems like a lot of waste. I know there's folks that think, well, I need 2 7/16 in pieces. I should be able to split this right down the middle. But again, you're asking for an unstable piece because of the internal stress that you're releasing when you open that up in the middle. If you could go in and open up the middle and then you needed a narrower piece and you could let that sit for a while, you might get away with it. But you're always best to just take the center section, removing the same amount from both sides. If you want really stable pieces, and by that I mean, when wouldn't you? If you're building something and it's just imperative that things be perfect, Well, let's say you're talking about drawer sides. What I would do is take my 4/4 piece and I would mill it down so that it was flat on both sides. And then I would either store them up high out of the way, like that, on edge. Why? Well, then air can get all the way around them. If you lay it like that, it's going to lose or absorb unevenly on this side than the one that's on the bottom, which is trapped between the bench top. Leave it like that, and it's far better off. Or you can sticker them, meaning you can set your pieces down, and using small pieces of wood the same thickness, meaning these pieces are the same thickness, you can stick your pieces, put more on top, and stack them all like that. I've even gone in and clamped the whole thing to try to keep it stable during the drying process. So I would start with my rough lumber. I would take it down to that thickness. I would let it sit, stickered or standing on its edge. A couple weeks later, I would come in and I would finish milling it. Now, if I found one of these pieces really moved, then I probably wouldn't use it, because if it moved the first time, it's probably going to move again. I always mill up a couple of extras so I can go through and take the best. When you're finally ready and you can take it down to this thickness, now you've got something that you got a pretty good chance it's going to stay nice and flat. So it takes a bit of extra planning, because it doesn't mean you're going to be able to mill it and use it today. You're going to mill it, let it sit, let it acclimate, mill it again, and hopefully you're going to get really good pieces after that. Hey, if you like this video, we have more. Our newsletter has subscriber-only content, monthly discount on tools, and anything we bring out that's new, subscribers get first crack at it. Click on the link below. Let's get back to work. All right, this next piece is a little bit conflicting with what I recently told you, but take into consideration where we're using it. I'm going to talk about drawer construction. I like my drawers to be really thin. Makes for a nice light drawer, so you're not having to lift the drawer, just the contents. However, because it's thin like that, it can be a little bit unstable, meaning it'll cup a little bit, but I'm going to explain something. This drawer side is 13.5 inches long, 4.5 inches wide, and it's 3/8 of an inch thick. If that drawer side were to cup a little bit, meaning it sits like this, or you turn it over and it sits like that, I can pull that out when I pull a joint together. The dovetail is tight enough and it's glued that when you assemble this end and this end, that's going to hold that piece nice and flat. However, if the board is twisted and it rocks corner to corner, I don't want something like that anywhere near my drawer, because it's going to throw off the level of precision that I'm working for. So narrow stock like that with a little bit of a cup. In fact, you can even take some of that cup out by sometimes setting it down on the floor and just letting it absorb moisture. So if it absorbs moisture, if you put the side that is concave down, as it pulls in moisture, it's going to do the opposite. And you can actually catch it right when it gets back to being flat, build your drawer, and there won't be a problem. Like I said, that joint front and back will hold it so it remains nice and flat on the sides and on the inside. But the twisted stuff, don't want to work with that. I get a twisted board. If I can't use it in short pieces, then it just sits on the shelf because I can't stand burning it. But anyway. So here's somewhat of a newcomer when it comes to stabilized wood. This is a piece of torified maple. So torified is a process, I believe it actually started with the Vikings. It was their way of preserving wood. When they torify it, they cook it in a chamber where, in the absence of oxygen, so that it won't actually consume the wood, won't burn it, but it does something to the cell structure that it no longer absorbs moisture. Well, if it doesn't absorb moisture, then it doesn't rot, but if it doesn't absorb moisture, then it doesn't move either. So when I was first introduced to this, my friend Mel was telling me about it, and I said to him, you mean to tell me you've never ripped a piece of torified and have it close in on the blade? He said, never. Well, I got some. I brought it home. I think I had a piece about this wide. I went over to the table saw. It was 7/8 of an inch wide, 7/8 of an inch thick, and I cut it on the table saw. So I stood it up like this. I made a cut up here, flipped it over, and finished the cut. The outside piece was 1/8 of an inch thick, and it literally went down like that, laid flat on the table, and months later, it was still nice and flat. Did not move. I was impressed. Downside is the torification process actually weakens the wood. So as long as you're not using it in small pieces or small segments, you'll be all right. It's a great way of stabilizing wood, but it's got its limitations. However, if you're looking for something really stable, you may want to check out torified wood. And there are several woods that they do that to. Usually you can find them at most hardwood suppliers. To wrap this up, there are times when you just can't win. That's why I said, when I'm building something like this, and there's 5 drawers, which means there's going to be 10 drawer sides and 10 over here, so that's 20 drawer sides. I would easily mill up 24. There's going to be those that no matter what you do, they're going to twist. And my experience has been if you find a board that twists the first time, you can take the twist out by rejoining it and planing it, but there's a good chance it's going to come back. So nasty piece of wood like that, either use it in short pieces or put it away somewhere and don't use it in your good piece of furniture because it'll only mess things up. So what I've told you is what I've found over the years as the best way to avoid disappointment, having a piece twist on you. You can't be cheap about it. You've got to buy the extra lumber. When we do something out of a hardwood, we always factor in about a 40% waste factor. So if you need 10 boards, you're probably better off to buy 13 or 14. Allows you the opportunity to select exactly what you want and to avoid any of those pieces that misbehave. Hope this helps. If you enjoy my method of work and like my style of teaching, click on any one of these videos to help take your woodworking to the next level. I've always said better tools make the job so much easier. If you click on the plane and chisel icon below, it'll take you to our site and introduce you to all the tools that we actually manufacture right here in our shop. It'll also give you information on our in-person and online workshops.